Part D on the architectural walking tour of Collingwood and Fitzroy. Let's go. I have so much to get through today. We're going to talk about this building. It's a workplace. It's designed by JCB Architects. And the reason we're talking about it, because I know it might look like a standard commercial office workplace, it is a pioneering, radical development for the construction industry in terms of sustainability. It's the tallest timber tower in Melbourne, and we're going to talk about what makes timber so amazing and why it's so hard to use in an Australian market. To do this, we need to cover a couple of general concepts when it comes to sustainability in buildings, construction, and architecture. The first one is, what's the difference between embodied carbon and operational carbon? Operational carbon is basically everything that gets the building to turn on. Where is your power coming from? How do your lights turn on? What runs your air conditioning? And can you get gas out of your building? Heating and cooking. Embodied carbon is basically all the materials that make up a building. So concrete, tiles, steel, aluminium. Where did that material come from? How is it made? How did it get to site? If you add up the carbon that was required for all of those processes, that's the embodied carbon of a material. And it gets really hard to decarbonize. So what is the embodied carbon of some of our most traditional building materials? This graph here shows the embodied carbon per kilo of steel, concrete, and timber. For this video, I'm actually only going to talk about concrete and timber because otherwise I could be here for half an hour. But what you need to know is that timber is our best foot forward in terms of a material that has low embodied carbon. The reason why concrete is quite high is summed up really well here. Concrete includes the production of cement. Now, in order to create cement, huge volumes of heat have to be created, and the energy required to produce that heat to create cement, which then goes into concrete, is what gives it a really high embodied carbon. So what makes timber so great? We're going to cover this in 4 major concepts. The first one is, I've got to refer to my notes so I don't get this wrong. The first one is, timber is a renewable material. You can just keep planting trees and timber never runs out. It's not an extraction from the earth. That's number 1. Number 2, trees literally pull carbon out of our atmosphere and turn it into timber, the trunk, and we take that and build a building out of it. So it's a really great carbon store. Number 3 is the ability for DFMA. DFMA, to grossly simplify a very complicated subject, is the ability to dismantle a building, basically. So if you were building traditionally and you had concrete elements being connected by a concrete pour, it's very hard to later go and change that building if the building use needs to change, and our buildings aren't designed for flexibility. And so what that means is you have to demolish things in order to reuse buildings later on. Whereas timber, which is connected through a series of bolted connections, can actually be taken apart piece by piece. So you can reuse the elements of a timber building elsewhere. The last reason why timber is so amazing is this concept here, biophilia, which some of you may have heard before. It's basically the concept that as humans, we have evolved to live outdoors. We would rather sit under a tree than in a glass apartment. And our built environment has been taking us further and further away from our natural state of being. Being able to reintroduce natural elements, we're going to feel better, we're going to be better, we're going to be healthier. So getting timber into our structural systems is not only sustainable in terms of the environmental impact, but sustaining us as a society under the principle that we're getting a more natural state of being integrated into our built world. So if anyone's sitting here thinking like, but what the hell, we've been building with timber since forever, you're absolutely right. The reason why mass timber is such a revolution is because it's an engineered solution to wood. It's actually a series of wood pieces brought together and stuck together with different glues and in different methods to create structural elements that can be used in commercial architecture. So big ass towers, basically. This is relatively new. This is the radical bit, by the way. Internationally, this stuff is everywhere, but Australia faces some unique problems. Our first timber building went up in Australia, at least what I can find from research, went up in 2012. Our construction industry doesn't have a lot of experience, and what that means is there's a cost implication as people learn new skills and new tools. The trade-off is that it's so quick to build with. 3 minutes on average to install each beam. Like, That's insane. Shorter construction times obviously mean money saved. We have really regulated fire requirements, and the reason why this building is so pioneering is because there hasn't been a lot of precedent for what happens to a building built out of timber if a fire rips through. Finally, in Australia, we have to be very careful about where our timber comes from. We have hectic deforestation issues, and most of this in Australia is to do with the beef cattle industry. But it does mean that we need to be really careful. And that means for architects, developers, builders, time and effort to check where everything is coming from. Of course, there's whole industries set up for this type of timber overseas, but by the time you ship a product to Australia, the carbon offset, it kind of gets called into question. So that's why this building is on the list. Not only have they overcome all of the regulatory hurdles and construction hurdles of getting something like this built in Australia, but it's beautiful. They've brought it together with such rhythm and precision and the contextual colour palette. And I think it should be applauded for what they have achieved on this site. So that's part D, Melbourne's tallest timber tower, a pioneering project in commercial architecture for sustainability. Next, we're kind of on the home run now. We've got E, F, and G, which are not going to be as long as this, I promise. Once again, well done if you stayed to the end. Demand these things in your workplaces, and let's get a more sustainable built world.